You're listening to the Prosperity Report Love and Money podcast. Find out what every couple needs to become a winning team in love and money. We bring you actionable ideas from expert therapists and experienced married couples, helping you stay happily married longer. Stay tuned until the end. We'll leave you with a tip you can start using today in our 5-minute activation segment. Now here's your host, best-selling author, speaker, and psychotherapist, Kanae Corder.
Welcome everybody. I want to say a special welcome to my Prosperos. How are you enjoying the all-new Prosperity Club? I hope you love it as much as I loved creating it for you. If you have any questions or comments, reach out to me on Instagram. You can go to kanaecorder.com/Instagram and leave me a DM. I'm really good at getting back to my Instagram followers. And make sure you follow me while you're there. I also want to give a special hello to my FinCon listeners. So from August 1st to September 25th, all the episodes will have guests from FinCon. And if you don't know what FinCon is where money and media meet. It's a financial conference for money nerds like me. I've spoken at FinCon for the last 2 years, and I've met some really great people. And I wanted to introduce them to you because I'm a part of 2 communities. I'm part of the financial community as well as the wellness community. And right now I want to introduce you to my financial friends. And later I'll introduce you to my wellness friends. But in the meantime, let's get into today's show. And don't forget to listen all the way to the end for our 5-minute activation so you can learn a tip that you can start using today. I have a great show lined up for you. We are going to talk about 2 things. We're going to talk about the connection that a couple can make by being a team in love, life, and money, but especially in money. And then we'll talk a little bit about how that can affect your happiness. So today I'm going to talk to Elle Martinez about this mainly because 1, I was on her show and we had such a great conversation, but it was short and we still wanted to talk more. So she's coming on my show. And 2, because she has a great course for couples just like I do. So I'm always happy to share with the world, what else is out there. So it's not just about what you can get from me, but what you can get from other financial experts just like me. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest, Elle Martinez. Hey, Elle.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have you on because, like I mentioned in the outset, we had a great conversation when I was on your podcast. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. I think maybe it's just us, but, I could talk about marriage and money for a long time just because there's like so much that you can cover and so personal. And at the same time, there are certain truths that you have to realize before you can make some progress. And you're very positive, and I love that.
Oh, thank you. And I think we established a rapport very quickly because that was our first time talking, I believe, ever. And so it maybe just like you said, because we do have these 2 passions, because I could talk about money and marriage. You can call me at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday and I'm all ready to go. So I like to start out with my first question. And that is, what is your idea of prosperity?
That's a really deep question. And I know coming from a personal finance background, people will expect me to kind of put a dollar amount. But I feel like for me, prosperity is when your finances and your life aligns with what you value the most. And I'm going to use a personal example for myself. We feel like we're prospering right now. Yes, we're doing fine financially, but it's that we have comfort, that we feel financially secure enough that we can pursue things such as, for me, being self-employed, working from home. And my husband also gets to work from home a couple days of the week. So we have time for our kids. We're in the season of life. We have 2 young kids. And 1, daycare is expensive, but 2, we really want to be there. for our kids right now as they're growing up. We realize how blessed we are for that. And we have worked hard for that. But I feel like that's part of that prosperity feeling, is that we have choices and options, that we can dedicate our time, and we have the finances there so we can be more engaged parents and pursue passions with work. My husband's a software developer and I'm a writer. And I like to say I get paid to learn and explore, with marriage and money being a huge topic for me. But then also, financial independence. And what does that mean? How does that spill over into your life?
Yeah. And that's a good point, because when I was on your show, I listened to the episode and I could tell you done more homework on financial therapy than just the conversation you had with me. So I get that you do learn from being a writer, because if you're interested, or if you really want to go deeper in not just the conversation you're having with the person you're interviewing, but thinking about what the reader or the listener might be asking, so you can answer those questions for them. So yeah, I could see you learning more, because I could tell you had a little bit more knowledge. Like, she didn't get that from me.
I've learned a lot. And that's one of the things. And one of the reasons I have the podcast is because things are changing with finances. On the plus side, there's so many more options. There's apps, programs. FinTech has exploded. And then also, like what you're doing, financial therapy, that's like, I found out and discovered you're the first financial therapist I had spoke to one-on-one, but that is an area that is emerging and exploding so fast. And I love to kind of see where that's going. And there's such a huge need for it nowadays. So yeah, I love to learn and see what's out there. And I know a lot of people that listen to my show, and part of the community, a lot of them are parents too, or even it's just the two of them, they're busy. So if I could help them cut through the noise and find value faster, I absolutely love doing that.
Absolutely. Because that kind of goes into our topic for today, and that's that teamwork to get to your financial goals. And what I hear you saying, a lot of what you do for couples is to help them sift through. You already sift through the information out there, because there's so much information out there, and you bring it into one place so that they have one place to go to get a good portion of what's out there.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's absolutely crucial. I think sometimes also one of the mistakes we make, and I say we because like I started Couple Money because I needed it, is that we kind of jump into like, what's the tool to fix this? And it's absolutely like, I can show you that, but I usually try to present it with, here are the kinds of couples or the personalities I think this would click with. And so that means a couple should be having these conversations together so they know what to do, what tool would be best for them, or what process would fit them, their goals and their circumstances.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Mainly because, one, if you say up front, here's who could benefit from this, then they kind of know the guidelines or the mindset they need to have coming in. Or they need to know, don't take this course, you're just not ready yet, really. And I really, as a course facilitator myself, I would prefer you wait until you're ready rather than technically like fail the course, or drop out of the course. But wait until you're ready, till you have that mindset of, let's do this together, or whatever the mindset needs to be in order to succeed in the course.
Yeah, because, and I feel like this is, you have, what does Dave Ramsey calls it, a heart of a teacher. This isn't, I know we're business women, but at the core of this is helping people with a need, and for me, it came out of a personal need, my husband and I getting on the same page, because we weren't when we got engaged. We thought we were, but we weren't. And then kind of saving couples a little bit of stress, a little bit of trouble, pointing them in the right direction. So yes, there is a business behind it, but first it's always to serve, to help. And then of course the couple has to take those first steps. They have to talk together. They have to work together. And then it's easier to guide them to the best solution for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And my overall mission in life, but in my business as well, is to relieve pain. And of course, finances are a big part of pain in some people's lives, even when they have a good income, even when money is coming in, the earning part is done, there's still the growing part and the protecting part and the gifting and maybe even enjoying. Some people enjoying their money is a pain point because they maybe didn't grow up with money. They got it later in life. And now they feel like if I do the wrong thing, it's going to go away. So I bet not enjoy it too much. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, I will say, and it's not every couple, but it seems pretty common when couples come to me. One, something's usually wrong, something's not clicking. But two, it's like financial opposites attract. There's, even with my friends, I look at them, I love them, and I can see like one person is fantastic with maybe earning the money. They do really well, but maybe they're not aware of the spending. And the other one is the natural saver. And so they pull out the numbers, whether it be an app or a spreadsheet. And I feel like that is, first of all, you have to see where your spouse is coming from because we all have a lens that we see the world through and we don't appreciate it. Like, for example, when we first had our money talk, I will say on the outside, it looked like we were on the same page. We met in college. A mutual friend introduced us, and we were both broke working college kids. Okay. So we felt like this should be easy talking about finances. Yeah. Because on the outside, that's what it looked like. But when we actually looked at the numbers, it was completely different. To give you an idea was I had the trifecta of debt. I had some credit card debt. I had a used car that I was making payments on, had to have a co-signer, by the way, for that. And I also had some student loans. And my fiance, now husband, had a small student loan. He had just bought my ring, so he had a little bit of savings. And he wasn't like at all aware about investing. He knew it was something you did. And I had started investing. So we on paper were completely different, but when we were dating, like it never occurred to us that we were so different with how we viewed finances. And that immediately became something we're like, okay, we have to get this squared away because we're not on the same page. There was a big enough gap. We knew we had to make this work somehow.
Right. And as a financial therapist, where the differences really lie is in the mindset and the what I call the past money history. Yeah. So taking on that certain amount of debt was okay for you because whatever past money history you had, right? And then investing, not being savvy in investing or even starting in investing was okay for him because of his past money history. And what we then have to find out is what do we believe about money? Some of it, well, all of it is just programming. It's just past programming that is instilled in us so early, like before we even get our first paycheck, that we don't even realize that it's that unconscious. We're just reacting and not necessarily logically thinking each decision through. We're just moving about the way we saw our parents or grandparents or maybe what we saw on television.
Exactly. That's what happened with us. I grew up, my mom was raising the three of us, and money was tight. And on the plus side, my mom did show me the budget. I was helping out when I was a teenager. So I understood, like, can we afford this? But I was looking more of, can we afford the payments? That's what I grew up. That's what I saw. That was what was normal in my circumstances. And for him, his family and friends, they had a family business, worked from a very much like cash. Wait till it's in the bank account. And that's what you have. Don't have credit cards. That's where you operate from. And so we continued that because for our circumstance, we felt like, well, one, that's normal. And two, that's what works. And then we realized, wait a minute, there's a disconnect between us. But like you said, we have to see, like, why do you believe that? Because sometimes when we approach that with that lens in a marriage, we think, oh, they're being stingy. Yep. Why is he being cheap or why is she being cheap? It's not them being cheap. Maybe they're more cautious. Maybe their parents got burned in a business or something that's in the back of their minds. And you don't know that until you talk with them. And it's like this, like Pandora's box opens in a good way of, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah, that's a great point because my parents tell this story sometimes and we might have talked about it, but they both got laid off in the same year. So they kind of raised us to be entrepreneur minded, and they kind of were entrepreneur minded anyway. But once they both got laid off, they started a business together. And then just seeing that
helped us see like, oh, you kind of want to have your own thing. You can't really trust corporate America. So a lot of times when I was dating people, they would kind of be upset with me about not getting a job. But I'm like, what's the difference? You could get laid off tomorrow. You have a job, but at least I know I could wake up and I'm going to go to work. I'm going to work. Even if nobody tells me to go to work, I'm going to work because that's the mindset I have. But to the person who has the mindset that you have to have a job, I look lazy to them because not going out and getting a job. And they look dependent to me. I'm like, you're dependent on that person to give you a check, right? And so we had a disconnect and a judgment, you know, we were judging each other.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we all have perspectives and it's good to have that. And even though like my husband and I definitely feel like we're on the same page and we're working together, there's definitely things where we feel one way and it might not match up per se, but we feel comfortable enough and not judged enough. When you know the why behind, then you're like, okay, this is where they're coming from. You can extend each other like this kind of buffer saying, hey, that's still not my cup of tea. Like I want to be an entrepreneur or I want to do the 9 to 5 because I feel secure in whatever way you want to do it. It can give you that space to do it and still respect each other. But it is hard, like when you have those conversations, sometimes you will unfortunately find out that there is a disconnect. And the question is, do you guys want to work at it and go forward? Or is this something that's a big enough gap that it's not going to work out?
Deal breaker. Yeah. So I'm wondering the benefits in saying, well, let's just work on it together, like becoming a real team, because we just talked about the why behind, right? And that's kind of like programming that was set in place, which also ties into just the patterns, right? And so when you see the patterns of the other person, you might want to be judgmental, and your own patterns you're oblivious to. So
don't you love those blind spots?
Exactly. So if you talk with someone like you or me, then what ends up happening in a couple is that those blind spots now become visible. And then, like you said, you have to decide, are we going to work on them or not? Or are we going to say, you go your way, I go mine? Or what I find happens sometimes is they stay in the marriage, but they split the money. And so it's like, okay, we're staying married. I like being married to you. I just don't like the way you handle money. So I'm going to take my money and I'm going to do this stuff with it. And you take your money and you do whatever you need to do with it. But when you do that, one, it's not efficient. But two, there's this separation where you don't connect on every level. And so there's this missing piece to the marriage puzzle. What do you see the benefits of the couple coming together and really getting on the same page financially, like you say?
Well, I would say this is an opportunity actually to create some synergy. This is, to me, one of those benefits of being married to someone who's your opposite, because those blind spots, like you mentioned, we all have blind spots and we also have weak points. And maybe we don't want to admit to it where we're good at this, but we're not good at this. This is where the teamwork can become amazing. And I'm going to sound like some sports analyst, but like for football, for example, you have the offensive and the defensive, and they are absolutely crucial, especially those big games. They both have to be on point, but the quarterback can't replace anybody on the defensive side. Those linemen can't replace the quarterback, and they shouldn't. You have your gift, you have your strength, bring that to the relationship. And I know a lot of couples, especially, you know, when they reach out, whether when they take the course or ask a question, they feel like, oh, if we keep it separate, we're going to minimize the fights. And I'm like, no, this is actually the opposite. This is where you start having a wedge in your relationship. This is where there's a lot of unknowns. And I don't know about you, but like I've noticed all of us have this gift to fill in the gap.
Yeah.
And if we have any kind of like insecurity or fear or trust issue, we're going to put it in there. And so being on the same page, even like for couples, I know I've had some that approached me. This is their second marriage and their first marriage didn't end well. And it was finances. That was one of the huge pain points. So they think, okay, I have to keep this separate. One of the first things I say is, how about this? You eventually want to get to this point. They say, yeah, we do want to work together, but right now we don't see eye to eye. I said, even if your bank accounts are separate right now, get a spreadsheet and plan it as if they're all joint accounts.
Yeah.
Put it all out there, have all the numbers. There are no secret accounts.
Yes.
Even if one of you is like the most brilliant, the new Warren Buffett of investing, and can do all the numbers and the magic and stuff, you are not in charge of the finances.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you are in charge of the finances. One of you might be the go-to because, again, you're playing to your strengths, but you are both have a say and you're both working together on your goals. And they're going to be joint goals. They're going to be things you want to do together. And yes, they're going to be individual goals. I know for my husband and I, we have different professional goals and we support each other with this. And that's the strength of two working towards these goals, even though it's technically, you might say his goal, it's our goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's so true. And also another way that I find that can sometimes make this a little bit easier is if they get into a course like yours or mine. My course is called the Marriage Money Mission. I don't recall. Tell me the name of your course again.
So it's called Jumpstart Your Marriage and Your Money. And it's based on my book, which I know it feels like it's based on. My book is based on our personal experience, but I've done over 200 shows on my podcast. I've interviewed financial experts, but like real life couples that have paid off $100,000 of debt, who have dealt with financial infidelity, or they retired early with kids. And while every marriage, of course, has their own journey and their own struggles and wins, there were certain patterns and habits that kept coming up. So the book was really good, but I know everyone learns differently. And they're both designed as a 4-week guide to help couples get on that same page and start creating a system that reflects them and their values. Because I feel, and I got this from you with our conversation on my podcast, is yes, I could tell you as soon as you talk to me, like, this is what tool you should do. It won't be as effective for you as it was for me because we are having different values. Every couple has their own relationship DNA. And so you have to plug into that first and then step by step. So the book and the course, like that first week is all about the why, where you want to go. Like those are two key components. And then we can start putting together the plan to pay off debt, putting together the plan for this and that. But you can't really achieve it. You're going to quit. If you get something that we did, you probably quit, because we found it fun. We found it motivating. We found it like, this is our thing, our groove. So that's kind of how I designed it. I want this to be a lot of questions to ask. I wanted to make this more of a conversation versus just lectures. It's very interactive. And I want couples to come away with this where they have a goal that they are so enthusiastic about that it matches like planning the lifetime trip that you've always wanted. Like I want couples to be that excited about their goal. Yes, I want them to plan for retirement, but maybe your first goal isn't that. Maybe it's just getting rid of your credit cards, and that to you is so exciting to do together because that means the extra like $300 you're putting or $500 a month that you're putting towards those credit card payments are actually going towards dreams. Like, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to travel more. We want to go and see the world together. This is what we're going to do. So that's kind of the pivot, the mindset that I kind of want couples to have. And I want them to start off as a team because that's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great point. And one of the things I wanted to go back to, so the reason why I brought that up, I wanted to talk about your course, but I think that by bringing a solution like, hey, I've noticed that I've got these patterns going on and I really want to do something about it. And I've discovered this course, Jumpstart Your Marriage and Your Wealth. And it's a 4-week guide to help us get on the same page financially and lower our debt and really get to our financial freedom. Can you take this with me? And in the meantime, that's when this stuff comes out, right? So I think that just going to your partner and saying, hey, can we talk? I got to tell you something. I'm $10,000 in debt.
Wait. You got to wait for a couple glasses of wine. No, I'm kidding.
So they're saying, What the? Yeah, right. And sometimes people are so afraid they probably wanted to have that conversation when they were $5,000 in debt and they just couldn't rip the band-aid off. And this kind of goes to the financial therapy because our brains are wired to protect us. And so if a brain is trying to protect us, it's not going to go, hey, go tell your spouse about this horrible thing you did. It's going to be like, hey, you better keep that a secret because that's going to get you in trouble. And I know you don't want to get in trouble.
Exactly. Well, that actually, it brings up a good point. This is also part of my book and course is I call them money dates. That is from week one, where you guys have regular check-ins, and every couple is different. For us, it's monthly where we check in. Some couples, because of where they are, I actually interviewed a couple where it was financial infidelity. I've interviewed a husband where it was like 6 figures of debt before he came to his wife, and they were going to be bankrupt in 2 weeks. Yeah, talk about ripping the Band-Aid there. So for them, they find that twice a week they check in before the weekend because that seems to be where they overspend, and then after the weekend a review. So it feels like less the money talk and more like, oh, we're just talking about money this week. We're talking about, okay, how are things going? And it's easier to catch things when they're small, so hopefully they're having these conversations and they're not having like a huge secret debt. But if it does happen, it's more like I've made this mistake, I've screwed up, but it was within the last 4 weeks versus, hey, the last 4 years, I totally didn't tell you about this.
Right. Yep. And what happens is when they have somebody like you there as a buffer to lean on, it probably makes it a lot easier to have that conversation rather than by themselves. It's much easier to do it when you have support. And that's why a course like yours or mine is so important because on our own, left to our own devices, we'll probably just keep doing what we know.
Yeah. I mean, and that's human nature. That's the habit, which I think this is why there is need for my site. But then especially with what you're doing with financial therapy, which is so much more deeper, is we're giving tools. Like for me, I include questions, these conversation starters, these icebreakers within the course in the book, because I know how hard it is to kind of open up like, hey, remember that credit card I had and I told you it was taken care of? Actually, it's not. Like you don't know where to start. So that is a part of the course. But then when you do have this friction and you hit a wall, I'm really happy that there is now like financial therapy and it's becoming more known and people are more comfortable with it because you really dig in deeper. Because you and I know, like, yes, these are money fights, but really it's just a symptom of a deeper problem, something else going on. And you need a professional to work with you with that. Like I consider myself, I'm going to go with this health analogy. Like I might be that excited trainer that works for you, but say if you got injured, you're going to need a specialized physical therapist. And that's where you would come in. I have a certain scope of expertise and you have a deeper one. And I think they work in tandem with a couple, but a couple wouldn't know what to do until they had that first step of basic financial knowledge and relationship knowledge. Like who should I call and reach out to?
Yeah, such a great analogy. I didn't think of that myself, but I like the way you said that. And I should probably warn you that I'll be stealing it.
Well, and I think this says something about our space and people like us in particular. We have a genuine desire to help people. Like for me, I work with other couples and professionals that are in the marriage and money space. And I never see this as competition. I see as collaboration. I see opportunities. And there are some couples that talk to me and based on their background, I'll say, you know who you should talk to? And I'll mention someone because I know they've been in that space. And they usually, they still stick around in the community. They're part of the community. But the whole goal is to help people and to give them the resources. And so I always approach things as a partnership. And I feel like that's how you can help people the most. And it all will come back to you, when you're generous and you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely. So true. You know how you just said couples come to you and you're like, oh, this might be, this person might be better for you to work with. What is something that you see couples come to you with that you're like, oh yeah, this is my thing. I'm so glad you came to me for this because I can totally help you with this.
Well, a lot of it has to do, like, I've been in this space, like I've been in your situation. For example, there are a lot of people in the marriage and money space where you can see both spouses out there. I think of go to my buddies Ty and Talat from His and Her Money. And they're awesome and incredible. The people I help out are usually the ones where one person is, you know, kind of taking the lead with finances and the other one has no interest.
Yeah.
Like they are trying to pull their spouse, they're like hugging them. They want this to work out. And the other spouse does too, but they don't have that language. They don't know where to work this out, where they're on the same page with finances and yet they're still speaking their spouse's language. So like that's our story. My husband, he cares about the finances in the way of how can this help me take care of my family? How this help me take care of my neighbors, my friends, the community? What can money do? But the actual like sit down with numbers and, hey, honey, I negotiated like $10 off this, or I got this great deal on rebates, stuff like that. No interest. And I do get a lot of couples like that where they feel like there's no way we can be compatible with money because there's such a huge gap with how we approach things.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is my specialty in, no, you guys are actually in a great position. And again, it's a little bit of a mindset shift, but then actually doing the work and saying, what are your strengths? And then they discover like my husband is incredible with savings and breaking things down, because when you look at our personal savings, he loves to save up for the big gadgets. He's a tech guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, let him do that. And so I feel like that's my strength, is when couples feel like we love each other, we want to work this out, but I can't even see like a starting point because we're so different.
Yeah.
I feel like those are my people. Like
okay.
we can work this out because there's a reason you fell in love with this person. There's, you know, a similar goal, and we'll get to that goal that you guys will work together, and then let's divvy up based on strength. And I think we had this conversation on my podcast where there's this idea, and I feel like it's incorrect, where, oh, we'll go 50-50 in on this. And it's not about that, right? Right? It's like, okay, you might take the lead on this. We're working together. And then you take the lead on this.
Yeah.
And it is finding those pockets within your relationship. And you and I know, like, finances are a part of it, but then you're looking at the big picture. So long-winded answer. If you feel, if couples feel like they can't even start seeing eye to eye, you probably should chat with me.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that. One of the other things that I notice is that sometimes when couples can't get on the same page financially, one person will kind of control or like become like the tyrant over the finances and bulldoze. And because the other person is not maybe so good at it or really doesn't care much about it, they just let it go. They just throw up their hands. But with resentment, they don't want to let it go, but they just don't want to ruffle any feathers or, you know, create any more waves. It's just like, well, just let her do it or just let him do it. You just walk away. What advice, I guess, or, you know, what tips can we give those couples where one person is like totally controlling the finances?
I would say you're really shortchanging your relationship, and it's an unhealthy balance. And I know we think of like the spouse that doesn't have a say. Maybe they're like, hey, I just want to keep the peace. I don't want to rock the boat, as having resentment. But after a while, whether they're conscious or not, the couple that has all the burden on them to do the finances, to make everything squared away, there's going to be a resentment because in the back of their mind, they're thinking, well, they're not pulling their weight. I have to come up with this and they want to blow the budget. You know, I'm trying to have us retire in 10 years and they still want to do trips around the world or something like that. You're really causing a lot of friction within your relationship, and you're not hearing each other because one of you is taking control. Again, yes, you have a strength, but that doesn't give you the voice. You both have a say in this. I believe this is a marriage of equals. You're partners in this. And so talk to each other. You might have to find a middle ground. I've interviewed couples where they wanted to get out of debt, both of them, but the speed they wanted to do it was different, and you have to respect that. So I was the one that was in debt, and now I kind of want to say, like, student becomes the master. Like, I'm really excited about financial independence, and my husband is too, but the speed he wants to go to, he's the guy, he's very laid back. He's like, but don't forget, we're in the season in life, our kids are 6 and 3. We don't want to miss out on that. So are we going as fast as I would like? No. Are we going as slow as he would like? No. But we found this comfortable spot where we're both satisfied and we feel like we're both being heard. And then, of course, as seasons change, you always adjust it. So again, that's why I say have those money dates where it's not like, okay, I'm building up resentment because, you know, our situation has changed, but we haven't changed ourselves. So always connect as a couple. I have yet to find, like, if you really want it to work out, where compromise isn't a fantastic solution.
Right.
You know, it's not you saying, oh, I'm not getting my way. It's where can we both be happy with our relationship and with whatever aspect, in this case, finances, with where we're going.
Yeah, such a great point. And I will add to that another tip. What I find usually when one person is working really hard to control or becomes like tyrannical, there's trust issue there. And it may not be with the spouse that's in front of you. It may be because, you know, your grandfather left your grandmother high and dry, or whatever past history that you saw happen, you decided that was never going to happen to you, right? Whether it's the male or the female, whoever decides to be the tyrant over the finances. So if you find that you are completely and totally have to be in control and you don't want the other person to do anything, then I would check your trust level and then also check whether your partner deserves that. You know, did they create that? And then if they do, like if you say yes, because at one point they gambled away our savings or whatever the story might be, if that is the thing, then go deeper and say, okay, we need to still work on this. I haven't forgiven you for when you gambled away our savings or whatever that story was. We still need to work on that. And that means therapy. Like that means getting down to the real root of the problem. And so if it's lighter, where you can just have a conversation and say, hey, I'd like to be a part of the finances. In one of the episodes I did earlier in April, the couple that I worked with, the woman came to me because she wanted to get more into the finances, but she knew nothing because she hadn't worked on the finances in 18 years. So she had to learn. And so she came to me to learn more about the finances, but she went to her spouse, she went to her husband and said, I want to get involved. And he allowed it. I mean, of course, I don't mean it to sound that way, but you know, after 18 years of taking over the money, you would think that he could become that controlling tyrant and be like, no, this is my area and I got it. And you go do something else, like go cook, woman, you know, or whatever that he might say. But it wasn't like that. He said, absolutely, come on in. You know, where have you been? I've been wanting your help. And so if you could be like Greg is his name, if you could be like Greg and say, you know, come on in, here's where you could help. This is what I'd like to take off of my plate. If you don't mind, you know, learning this or getting good at this, let's share.
Yeah. And there's so much power in sharing. And going back to the conversation we had on my podcast, like maybe Greg does 70% and his wife does 30% or whatever, but they're both contributing. And there's like this, I know we all mean it. Like I respect we each contribute in our own way, but when we're both contributing and you see that the contribution, you do have this respect for each other. It's easier to deepen that within your relationship when you're both participating versus one person doing everything.
Yep.
I feel like also, I don't want to be morbid, but what if Greg got hurt?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and he doesn't die. Yeah, he doesn't die, but you know, he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
How bad would he feel if his wife couldn't take care of the basic situation? They could lose the house. I mean, and we said like, man, that's dramatic. But these things do happen.
They do. I've seen it.
Yeah. Your wishes respected, the values respected. How can you do that if you're not talking, if you're not working together?
Yeah. When I was a financial advisor, I saw a young couple, 30 years old, and the husband died in a biking accident. He got hit by a car and passed away. And the wife, they had only been married a few years and she never really got into the finances. And it was part of their plan. They were like, yeah, we'll figure it out, kind of thing. But the great thing was they had just gotten life insurance, like maybe 6 months earlier. They had just gotten life insurance. And so that's how she became my client, was that she needed to figure out what to do with this money that she had just received, because it was $1 million policy. So for her, it was like, I don't know what to do with $1 million,
Yeah.
And she was even a few years younger than him. I think she was like 28 or something like that. And he was 30. And so they had only been married 2 or 3 years, but it was part of their plan. And so people put things off, and they had planned to plan more on the finances and do more and get her more involved, but it just never happened. So it could be that something catastrophic can put the other person in control of the finances. But if they just get 10, 20, even 30% involved, then that won't be so hard, because at least they have some idea. At least they know the passwords,
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't even know that.
Yeah. And going back to that control issue, if you don't know the passwords and if you're not aware of like your accounts, that is a symptom of a bigger problem. And you say like putting off stuff. If anyone listening to this, they don't know all the accounts or what's going on, one of the first things I suggest is kind of, in case of emergency, notebook. Like have that somewhere where you both know, where it has the accounts listed. So should something come up, or when you guys are getting ready for your money dates and stuff, you know what accounts to ask about. You should have kind of a central idea. Some people might go digital, but I think this is the first step, is that awareness and knowing, because it's our money. I mean, that's the mindset you really should. This is our money, that we're working together to build a life together. And you have to have finances be a part of that to accomplish this. And that means you have to know what you have and what you don't have.
Yeah, so true. And so I have one more question for you. And I want to remind you guys listening to stay tuned for a 5-minute activation. But as I always do, I end with, what is the best marriage advice you've ever received, or the advice you wish somebody would have told you?
Don't laugh. Because when I heard this, I thought this was the dumbest thing. Like, really? But we've been married over 11 years, and I have to say this is actually something that's been incredibly helpful.
Okay.
And one of the most romantic things you can do as a couple is to put things on the schedule.
Yes.
Time together, whether it's finances, I know personal finance, that, but more importantly, like, don't assume you'll have all this time. Like, schedule your dates.
Yep.
Well, that's not romantic. I want spontaneity.
Yep.
You can still have spontaneity, but at the very least, make sure you have these dates. Put that on your calendar. You matter. It is so easy for time to fly by, and you realize, like, we really haven't connected, especially if you're parents. We have a 6 and 3-year-old, and I love them. We love our kids. I promise you, they're everything. But we need us time.
Yes.
And we have that, like, they go to bed at a certain time. We need us time. It doesn't have to be long, like on a regular basis. And then we have our date nights, and we have some fantastic friends that we say, hey, can we drop off the girls with you? Because we need to do this.
Yeah.
And it's contributed so much. And yeah, I used to be like, well, if you really cared, this is spontaneous.
It would just be,
come up with it. No, it doesn't. I mean, I've been guilty of it too, where it's like, oh, no, I'd rather not. Take the time, put it on your calendar, make it a priority. It's such a huge help for your relationship.
Yeah, I can see that. I taught a class once, and there was a gentleman in the class, and he had his date nights on his calendar. And I remember a woman in the class with us, she said, oh my goodness, that's terrible. You put your wife on your calendar? And he said, yeah, that's how important she is. And I thought that was such a good comeback. I was like, yeah. He said, everything else is on my calendar. Why wouldn't my wife be on there? So I thought that was great, because it's true. You got all this other stuff on there. Put the most important thing to you, your vows say forsaking all others. So that means all that other stuff that you put on your calendar really comes after the spouse. The spouse should go on first, and then all that other stuff.
Yeah. And I know nowadays, like, a big thing is like morning routines, evening routines. And you think about it, it's like, routine, that doesn't sound exciting, but to take things to the next level, whether it's personal, professional, you have to set aside some dedicated time.
Yep.
And with your relationship, you have to do that. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have spontaneous time. You know, we don't have these like spur of the moment ideas and we want to do stuff, but we know at least we have some time. As maybe people might think this old fashioned, this is sacred time to us. This is something special. We made a vow together. We are a team, and it can't happen unless we have that time, you know, to sit and talk about what's going on with us. And yes, sometimes the kids come up, but sometimes it's just about what we're going through and talking to each other and relating to each other.
Yeah, great points. So I know I said that was the last question, but I do want people to know where to find you in your course and all the great things in your podcast. So I'll put a link to the episode from when I was on your podcast in the show notes, but I'd like to know where they can reach you.
Sure. So Couple Money is where I have everything. I have a weekly video show, Marriage and Money Tips. I have the podcast, and then any articles and everything I have is there. And then if they kind of want to get a sense of how to start working together, I suggest trying out the book first. Okay. And you can go to couplemoney.com/book, and I'll take you to whatever bookseller you prefer. A popular one seems to be Amazon. And that just gives you the tools necessary to start having those conversations. It's like cheaper than getting 2 lattes. And it's an investment still in your relationship and marriage. Because really that's what about, like, take care of your marriage. And part of that is finances. And so I try to prioritize the relationship first and then putting the finances with your values. So thank you so much. I had so much fun.
Well, guys, that's our episode for today. But before we go to our 5-minute activation, I promised you I'd tell you how to become a prosperous couple. So as I said before, it takes 2 powerful people to become a power couple. And we'd love to have you and your partner join the Prosperity Club. Whether you want to start with the free version or jump right into the paid membership, it's a great value for your time and money. And it's really important that you both join because they're questionnaires and things you're going to complete that you'll have the answers to. But what's awesome is that you can share it with your partner so that you guys can get to know each other better in love and money. So for just $97, you get the Prosperity Club annual membership. You get 5-day Prosperity Challenge. You'll get Crash Course in Prosperity 7-day course. You'll also get the Prosperity Club monthly activities and accountability emails. And then you get the private Facebook group. So only the special insiders get special offers on the Prosperity Club membership and new courses that come out. So you've got to join the private Facebook group. So go to KeneQuarter.com/Facebook to join the private Facebook group, and then go to KeneQuarter.com/prosperity-club to get your membership today. That's KeneQuarter.com/prosperity-club. But all of that will be in the show notes. So go ahead and check them out. And I'll see you in the club. It's time for 5-minute activation, a quick financial therapy session to get you activated and on your way to increasing the love and money in your marriage. So can I get 5 minutes of your time? Just 5 minutes for a financial therapy activation.
Hey there. Today, I want to talk to you about being curious. Now, that doesn't sound like it has anything to do with financial therapy, right? But it does. Being curious is a prosperity principle that when you embrace it, it changes your life. It changes your relationships. It changes your financial plan. Being curious is, well, you know how I say you got to fall in love with the plan, but don't get attached? So this being curious is the next step. How do you not get attached to your plan if you're in love with it, right? Well, if you are curious to see how it all plays out, then you enjoy the process more. Now, let me explain something. When I say don't get attached, I really mean the steps in between. So falling in love with the plan means the destination. I would like to be a New York Times bestselling author, as you know, as I've said many times before. Now, how I get there, I don't have to get attached to that idea. I don't have to say, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author of this particular book, right? That would be getting attached. If I just let that out into the universe and then see where it goes and just be curious to see how this dream, this idea, this plan will unfold, I can enjoy the process more, because it may not be the book that I'm thinking will be the New York Times bestseller. It may be a totally different book. Does that make sense? I bring this up because I run into a lot of patients and clients who get so frustrated and stressed about the plan. They fall in love with it. Yeah, they get that part, but then they get so attached that they forget to be curious. And they start saying things like, well, I've tried everything, and well, it's always going to be this way, and I don't see this ever changing, and I don't know what to do next. And so, when you get in that mind frame, you begin to make the process unenjoyable. And part of the way you enjoy the process is to be curious, to just say, I wonder what will happen next, or I wonder how this will play out. Or I can't wait to see, or wouldn't it be nice if? So statements like that are curiosity statements. So I encourage you to be curious instead of saying, I've tried everything or we've tried everything. Be curious to see what else is out there, what new program or course or retreat you can experience. Be curious instead of predicting the future. Like, I already know what she's going to do or he's going to say. Just be curious to see what your partner does or says, or how they show up in the world. Be curious to see what it will feel like if you got past the block that you have in your life. What if you saved more than you ever saved before? Be curious to see what that'll be like. Have you ever said, yeah, I'll just save this money and then something will happen and it'll get taken away? Well, just say, I'd be curious to see just how much I can save past $5,000 I've saved before, or whatever the number is. Instead of being attached to the past, like saying, oh, it's always been this way, say, I wonder what it'd be like if things were a little different than they've been in the past. I wonder what I'd be like if I didn't spend any money. I wonder what I'd do on a no money day, a day when I didn't spend any money, not a dollar, not even a penny. What would that be like? Just be curious. Be curious instead of giving up. Keep going. Your dream, your goal, your promise to yourself is just a couple steps away. It just happens. And as it's happening, you can enjoy the process by being curious. I'm curious as to what the next step will be. Just see the next step. You don't have to see the destination. Just be able to see the next step and be curious about that. So that's our 5-minute activation for today. If you need more, if you have questions, go ahead and DM me on Instagram. Go to KeneQuarter.com/Instagram and send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. All right, do me a favor. Have a prosperous week. I'll see you sooner.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you want more love and money conversations, subscribe to this podcast. Also, tell your friends about us. I'll see you next episode. But in the meantime, head on over to KeneQuarter.com for more tips, tools, and resources. And go ahead and leave us a comment if you like. We'd love to hear from you. This show is not to replace professional counsel. The best advice comes from a professional you know. The topics discussed in this podcast are general in nature and are for entertainment and informational purposes only. We encourage you to meet with a professional to discuss your specific situation, whether financial or therapeutic. That's all for now. I'll see you sooner. Remember, no matter what anybody ever tells you, you can have wealth in all of its forms. Believe it, and you will soon see it.